Well, hey everybody, and welcome to this midweek review with Mr. John. I am Mr. John, and we have been talking about Moses. And last week we had a lot of mind-blowing things happen. A decree by the Pharaoh saying that all the boys that were born to the Israelites would be thrown into the Nile to drown and die. We had Jochebed, who takes a baby, puts a little tar into a basket and floats it down the Nile River and prays for the best. And the best thing that could happen happens. The person who made the decree's daughter finds this baby, pulls him out of the Nile and adopts this baby. And then walking alongside to make sure the baby doesn't just float away into the Nile, the sister named Miriam watches the baby get plucked out and immediately goes up to the Pharaoh's daughter and says, "Hey, I got somebody, you're a busy person. You need somebody to watch this baby for you, and I can get a Hebrew woman who, they take care of their kids, and they really do well, and I can bring her to her." And the Pharaoh's daughter is like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." And Miriam goes back and gets this baby's own mom, Jochebed, to watch him. And we remember this baby's name, right? Moses. So when we left off last week, Moses had fled into the desert. So he flees into the desert because he had killed an Egyptian, maybe a slave master or somebody who was in charge of something that was beating a Hebrew slave. And Moses, knowing his history, took offense and attacked this person and killed the Egyptian person. Well, in those days, it didn't matter. I think Pharaoh may have been the only one who could execute an Egyptian and get away with it. Everybody else, even the Pharaoh's kids and stepkids or whatever, would be punished by death for killing an Egyptian. So he's fled, and he ends up in a place called Midian. And he meets the leader of this tribe that's in this encampment named Jethro. He lives there for a while. He actually marries Jethro's daughter named Zipporah, and they live there for 40 years, and Moses takes on the job of being a shepherd. So he's sitting around one day shepherding, and this has been like a 40-year thing, right? Moses has been doing this, and he's been sitting there, and he's doing his job when he notices something up in the mountains, and he sees this glow, and he goes to check it out, and he comes upon this bush. Now, this is no ordinary bush. This bush is on fire. It's just blazing, right? We've seen fires. We sat around and cooked s'mores on a fire. But here's the funny thing. When we put wood on a fire, it burns up. It turns black. It gets white and just turns to ash. And it burns away. We keep having to add wood, right? This bush is not burning up. And all of a sudden, Moses, maybe going up to check it out, just walks up. And all of a sudden a voice yells out, "Moses, Moses, take off your sandals, for the ground in which you are standing upon is holy ground." And so Moses takes off his shoes in reverence to the bush and this voice. And he finds out that this voice, this bush, is actually God. And God has something in mind for Moses. And he tells Moses, "I have heard the cry of my people for the last 400 years. I have heard it. And now it's gotten so bad that I am going to go into action to free my people. And guess what, Moses? You're the guy that's going to do it." And Moses' reaction might kind of come as a shock to most of you, and probably it might not, because Moses is filled with doubt. Now, studies and theologians, theologians believed that Moses had a really bad speech impediment. He was really not a speaker to people, an orator, a preacher. He didn't do that. He was a shepherd, remember, and they thought that he had a very bad stutter. And if you've ever heard a stutter, it's hard to understand. You kind of get to a point sometimes when you really are listening, but you're not comprehending what the person is saying. And Moses realized that, and he tells God, I don't speak well. I don't. And God goes, listen, Moses, I'm sending you on this task. I will give you the words to say. I will give you the ability to say it. And if you can't say it, I'll have somebody there that can do it for you. And we'll hear about that person later. But so Moses then is like freaking out, a little bit. And he kind of starts to, if I go to the people, what do I tell them? He's kind of playing, what do I say? I don't know what to say, And again, God gives Moses the words, right? He sits there and he tells Moses, you tell the people, I am who I am has sent you. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob is the one who has sent you. But here is the crazy thing, right? We think that God is telling Moses in this verse a lot of times that he is to tell the Egyptians this. Well, he probably does need to, but God is making it clear in this that he needs to tell the Israelites this. And why is that? Why would Moses have to explain who he is to the Israelites? If he's got, somebody comes in and he goes, I'm going to free you guys. And they're going, yeah, right. The reason is they've been slaves for 400 years. I imagine in that time, people have rose up and said, hey, we got to get out of here. And nothing happened, or it failed, or whatever. And so if the Israelites were to ask him, well, who sent you, Moses? God is clearly giving him the path and the thing to do and the things to say that would convince the Israelites he is who he is. So God has proven something to Moses. Dude, you're the man for the job. I get that you have some doubts and maybe a little worried, right? But don't worry, I've got your back, right? Here's the thing, guys. A lot of times when we do stuff, right? Say it's school or sports or almost anything. When we're asked to do it the very first time, our first reaction is going, but I don't know how to do that. And you would kind of get to this point of freaking out, right? And that's Moses. He's freaking out a little bit, right? I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not the guy. And God continually tells Moses, listen, I'm telling you, you're the guy. When people put trust in you and God puts trust in you, he is saying you're the guy. Maybe sometime you may be at church and you're asked to, hey, why don't you get up and tell us how you came to know who Jesus is? And you go, I've never done this before. This is scary. I'm not a speaker. I'm not the pastor. I'm just a little guy here. And you're asking me this question. Just know that when you stand up, that God is on your side. He's got your back. And the person who asked you to do that has total faith and trust in you. And he has got you back, or she has got your back. And they trust you to do this. What an incredible story we just heard, right? This is, again, a mind-blowing thing. A bush that doesn't burn. A job to do to free 1 million Israelites in a city that they are slaves to. And God gives him the orders and tells him, don't worry. I got you, man. God has got you. Always know that. Always believe that. Trust in it. Learn our verse that's coming up and follow the path that God has for you. We'll talk to you next time. Hey, we're going to continue our story of Moses. See you later. Bye. Show me your ways, Lord. Teach me your paths. Psalm 25:4.